Message down there, Brother Judah was preaching, and he preached on a lady, and her name was Anna. Anna, sorry. Man, it just keeps getting better. You got this hoodie with the tie that matches. Actually, it matches coming out with the red hair. Anna, looks great. I love the camp attire. Anyway, he was preaching on Anna, and Anna was from the tribe of Asher. Asher was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and From the Bible record, now we know that not every person that lived and every person that did a great thing is recorded in the Bible. But according to the Bible record, there was not a person from the tribe of Asher that did anything of note in the scriptures. Nobody that was a king, nobody that was a prophet, nobody that the Bible highlights that did anything. Until you come to Luke chapter number 2 and verse 36, where Jesus is born and goes to the temple. And there was one Anna, a prophetess of the tribe of Asher. And though she lived in a dark time in Israel where there was silence from heaven, and there was not a lot of people that were wanting to follow God, they were under Roman occupation, she said, you know what, in this sinful society, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to do what's right. She was, as the Bible would say, well stricken in years. If it's a man, it says they're old, but even God knows you got to be kind to the ladies and not call them old. But she was married for 7 years. Her husband died. She was a widow for 84 years. Her plans, her life got turned upside down. That's not how she thought life was going to go, but she just stayed for 84 years in the temple, serving daily. And then she got to see the Savior. After those many years of waiting, after all those maybe stories she's heard about the great things that God had done, she got to see the Savior for herself. But just during that message, and since then I've been thinking, we need someone to be the one. We need someone to say, you know what, no matter if nobody else is doing what's right, no matter if I'm the only one that's taking a stand, though it may be a time where not a lot of people are caring about the scriptures. Not a lot of people are being faithful. I can be the one that's going to do right. We see oftentimes in the Bible, especially the children of Israel going to the promised land and they conquer the enemy, and then they get to the book of Judges and they'll do right. And then after a while they just kind of forget about that and they go back to do whatever they want, and God will raise somebody up. And he doesn't just say, all right, you're coming out of the factory and we're going to send you to be the next person. No, he picks someone that's in the crowd. He's picking someone in Israel that says, you know what? This person, Gideon, I'm going to pick him. He's a mighty man of valor. Now, Gideon may not have thought that, but God said, I'm going to pick somebody. There's someone out there that I'm going to choose that's willing to stand up and be the one. God will find someone, though the people were in a mess, they weren't doing what's right. God says, I'll find someone who's willing to serve me, and I'll use that person to start a revival, to do something great. But that person has to be willing. So now we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter number 17. And, it seems like just about every year at camp, you're going to turn to 1 Samuel 17.
Yeah.
Don't want to be the guy that follows that, so we're just going to start off with that. I even have notes in my Bible right here. Brother Kirchner, 2019. That way, it's just, I'm the first one. Okay? Brother Cheney, 2023, right here, this chapter. Brother Johnson last year. We'll just, if it happens, I was here first, just so you know. Okay? 1 Samuel chapter number 17. We'll read a little bit at the beginning and kind of set the stage of what's happening. Verse number 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shokah, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokah and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. He goes out to the children of Israel, and what is he going to say? He stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. We have a few different groups of people here. They come to set the battle in array. Now, that doesn't mean they're actually fighting. That just means they're getting ready. This is like setting up a game of, I don't know, what do people play these days? Do people play board games? Monopoly, Axis to Allies. Anybody? Axis to Allies. And, the game that takes like 3 hours to set up and then 4 days to play. And so that's why nobody plays it anymore. And I remember playing those games. You had to have like a whole room devoted to it for a week to go in there. And, of course, Russia always lost first for some reason. But, anyway, but they're setting the battle in array. That just means they're getting set. Not a lot of fighting's going on, and we'll see in a minute. They're scared of somebody. But we have the enemy of God. We have the Philistines, the world. Then we have Israel. We have God's chosen people. They come out to fight against the Philistines, which was not an uncommon thing. They have been fighting against the Philistines for hundreds of years. And they'll continue to do that. But they're at a stalemate. They're just kind of there. Goliath comes out, talks to them. The Israelites see him. They run away. Nothing much has happened. Goliath asks the question, why are you come out? What's the purpose of this fight? Now, some people just like to have a battle just for battle's sake. It's fun and exciting, except people die and you might get an arm chopped off. And this was gruesome warfare back in these days. Goliath says, why are you here? What are you doing? What is your purpose for this fight? Why would you want to fight the armies of the world when you can just live in your little realm? Don't worry about what they have to do in your life. And then he says, if you want to fight us, choose you a man. Is there a man among you? Is there a soldier who is willing to step up and fight? You're all together as your little group, but is there going to be someone that says, hey, I'll go and fight this Philistine? He says, I don't think anybody is willing to stand up against me. And that's how often giants, things in our life are. You think, you know what? They're not even going to be strong enough to stand up against me. They're not strong enough to say no to something. Not strong enough to say, you know what? I need to defeat this in my life. Why even trying? Who thinks that they are going to be able to beat me? He says, I defy the armies of Israel. That's a challenge. Like I dare you to find somebody. This is me, Goliath. I'm a champion. I've been a soldier from my youth. I dare you to find someone who's going to come up against me. And what is Israel's response? When Saul and all Israel heard the words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now, there was something lacking, it seems like, in Saul's army. Apparently, they did not have a very good intelligence agency. They showed up to fight the Philistines, and, okay, who's this giant? All of a sudden, they're the ones coming out to fight, and hey, wait a minute, Goliath? We're going to be scared and run away from him. And now it says in verse number 4, there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines. A champion. Normally, a champion is someone that is known. Usually, a champion, that's someone everybody knows about. Maybe he's the hero to the Philistines. You don't think the Israelites knew about this guy? But somehow they weren't prepared to fight against the giant. They thought, okay, we're just going to go out to battle like at other times. But they weren't prepared for the battle that was going to happen. Now, we know in verse number 33, Saul, talking to David, said, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. So apparently they knew something about this Philistine giant. They knew something about Goliath. This wasn't the first time they heard about him. And yet they come to this battle unprepared. Just like sometimes we're warned about attacks that are going to come. We're warned about strongholds that come into our lives that can defeat us. But we think, oh, well, I can handle it. And then you show up and you think, oh, man, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Well, you were warned. The Bible has warned you. You've gotten instruction about how to defeat the enemy. But yet you get to the point where you're in the battle and you think, oh, no, what am I going to do? They were afraid, greatly dismayed. Then David arrives. David shows up. Verse number 12. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. David, in the previous chapter, had been brought to the king after he himself was anointed to be the next king. He was brought to the king because he was someone who stood out. Even at his age, as a teenager, he caught the eye of somebody. He was already in that position. He was being the one. It tells us in verse number 18 of the previous chapter, then answered one of the servants and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. And we think, are they talking about a champion? Are they talking about some hero? No, they're talking about a teenager who's at home watching the sheep, but he has a testimony. He is someone that no matter his age and his responsibility, he's just choosing to do what's right. No matter if someone's asked him to have a position, no matter if someone's paying him, he's just doing what's right no matter what. So David arrives. Verse number 16 of chapter 17. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. So David's coming. He shows up to this battle. Not much has happened. He shows up. He goes to see his brothers. Of course, older brothers are always happy to see younger brothers. Especially, it's like being at camp, And you're at camp, you're with the cool people, right? You're one of those experienced campers, and your younger 8-year-old brother shows up and tries to follow you all around, and you're like, get away from me. There's people watching. There's girls over there. Or these cool kids. You're being annoying. And imagine David showing up to the battle, to these soldiers, and Eliab's thinking, get out of here. What are you doing here? I am with my fellow soldiers, and you're not even the next brother. You are the baby of the family. Right. Shouldn't you be at home? Yeah. So this is what David is showing up to this battle. And David's thinking, well, who's this guy that's defying the armies of Israel? He's talking bad about us. And nobody's doing anything. Not only is nobody doing anything, they're running and hiding. Why isn't anyone dealing with him? And they respond to David, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't been here. It's like, imagine, Elijah, if your brother, Benjamin, showed up here, following you around, and then trying to tell you what you're supposed to be doing at camp. Trying to tell you how to play the game. Trying to tell you what each sound means. And you're thinking, dude, you don't even know. Maybe in like 8 years when you're old enough to almost come. Then you can know. And they're thinking, why are you even here? Shouldn't you be watching those sheep? You don't even know what you're talking about. So we see these different people here in the battle. Now, hopefully, you're a child of God. Hopefully, you're not part of the enemy. And here this week, we're glad you're here no matter what. And we want to see everyone be someone who has believed on Jesus Christ for their salvation, to be a part of the family of God, but someone who is devoted and who has a desire to follow after him. But who are you in the battle? There's the Philistines. They're with the world. There's Israel, those that are running from a fight. And then there's David, who is taking a stand. So what does it take to be the one? When someone asks for a volunteer, and of course your response is, you hope someone else says yes before you do. Or maybe you point fingers, you look the other way, you ever been that place, Shay, where you just pretend you didn't hear? Maybe something was covering your ears, and just makes it so you can't even hear. And you just pretend that you don't know what's going on, because you don't want to be the one that has to do something. You don't want to step out. But what did it take for David to be the one? Well, first off, nobody else was doing it. Now, there may be times when everybody's involved, and that's an exciting time. When other people are involved in doing what's right, and you have that encouragement, first off, it's easy to be involved. You get to have fun while you're doing it. You get encouragement to keep going. But there'll be times where nobody's doing what's right. There'll be times where maybe you're in a crowd of people that should be doing what's right and they're not. Maybe there's people around you that don't know what right is, and you have to decide to take a stand. So first we see David's initiative. David went down to the camp to do what? He went to deliver some cheese. He went to go see how his brothers were doing. Was he in the special forces and they called him up? They called him into service? No, he was a young man who just went to deliver a message. He didn't go as a soldier. Have you seen what David can do with that sling? I think we need to bring him in for this giant. That's not what they said. Yeah. That's not why David was there. And you may think, well, hey, who am I and what can I do? Well, sometimes just stepping out and saying, I'm willing to do something is a big step that nobody else is making. Wow. Initiative, this was at his own discretion. Nobody was forcing him. Nobody was asking him. They sure weren't expecting it from him. They weren't even thinking he should be there. They're thinking, we're running scared. What are you going to do? You're just going to get in our way. Maybe you're going to run faster than us, and it's like the bear, As long as you're not the slowest person, you're not going to get eaten, right? Well, as long as I'm not the slowest person out here, Goliath can't catch me. But David sees a problem. Okay, we have our army fighting against the Philistines. We're facing each other. Not much is happening because this giant is in the way. And we cannot win a victory because this guy is in the way and we're running scared. David sees that the job is not getting done. And he thinks, what can I do to help? Well, maybe I can give the cheese to my brothers so they can be strong and I can get out of here. I got a job to do back home. I have other responsibilities. Why should I find something more to do? But we've all heard the phrase, a need seen is an assignment given. David sees a need. He sees an army that should be doing the job. He sees a king that's not leading. But David says, well, then I guess I will have a part. From the smallest job to the biggest job, I can get involved. I'm not going to say, you know what, once you get to be an adult, some of you are a ways from that. Some of you used to be in these seats last time Brother Dan was here. And but you may think, well, I ain't going to go to camp if I'm just going to be working all the time. I want to go to have fun, And maybe if they ask me to preach or something, I'll go. But I don't want to go and be a counselor and sleep with those kids. I understand, and I wouldn't want to do it too. I really miss staying in the cabins and freezing at night. And, those were wonderful days.
It's a long time.
And what's that?
It's been a long time.
Yes, it has. But I still have those memories. Okay, let me just tell you, you guys have it easy, okay? My first year at Twin Bears.
Come on now.
Tell you, it got so cold that the pipes froze for the showers. Now, you guys may think that the showers are bad last year, ladies. We didn't have water until Wednesday. Not because things were just broken, because they were broken because they froze. Okay? The guys did not have showers until Wednesday night. Even if they wanted a shower. The girls, they didn't have showers either. The girls got to go down to the laundromat to take showers. Guys didn't have that privilege, okay? We had to wait. And when the water finally started working, do you think the hot water worked? No. We took freezing cold showers. And everybody's outside huddled around the fire. I think the first shower was after chapel, so it was midnight. People around the fire huddled up, staying warm. Me and I think Nathan Binkley, we were in the shower house. We walk out, we're in t-shirts. We're like, wow, it is warm out here compared to the shower we just took. And these people are freezing. Okay? So just be thankful that the sun is shining a little bit. And, 2 years ago, Noah's Ark was getting ready to depart because it was so wet that year. So it really can't get worse than that, right, Elijah? And it was so bad, Elijah didn't even come back last year. We had to talk him into coming this year because he's like, I don't want the flood to come again. I tell you, stop looking at the weather before camp. Anyway, but the initiative of David says, you know what? I don't need to be the top dog. But hey, if there's a job that needs to be done, I'm going to do it. If I see that I can come out to camp and be a help, you know what? There are people that were out here all this last week that did not have to be here to fix the shower house. Yeah. It took work just to get permission to come out here to fix the shower house. We had we had this great idea, and it's good to have ideas. I'm sure all of you ladies had the idea that the shower house needed to be done. But taking it past an idea and putting action to the idea, that's where this initiative comes in. I'm sure there was people in that army that thought, yeah, I sure wish I could take Goliath. I ain't doing it. I'd love to be the hero. Well, I ain't going to do that. I got to step out there and probably not make it, probably not kill the giant. But David said, what? I'm not really concerned about what happens to me. There's a job that needs to be done. Just because something may be somebody else's responsibility, if it's not getting done, that means maybe you could step in. Now, that doesn't mean you overstep and say, well, I don't like the way that this person's doing it. I don't think it should be done this way. I don't think they're doing it often enough. But hey, if a job is just abandoned and nobody's doing something, just because someone else didn't take care of their trash outside doesn't mean that you can't say, well, we're going to chapel. This food's blowing around in the wind. Let's throw this in the trash can. It's not, you don't have to get permission to do what's right. You don't have to have permission to step out and just be a good example to people. You may think, hey, I haven't been told that I can't do this. So, hey, I'll just do it. It doesn't say in the Bible exactly that I can't sit here and watch this or talk to this person. Well, maybe you should think about what the Bible would say if it was written directly to you. Because it may talk about that, but you just aren't looking for that in the Bible. Maybe you should just think, what does the Holy Spirit tell me I should do with this? What would Jesus do if he was here? Now he'd be hanging out with this crowd or doing this. Now he would be there with that crowd trying to help them do what's right, but he wouldn't just be joining in on what's going on. Maybe you say, my parents don't care if I do this. I know this is maybe right to do, but I'm not made to do this at home. I'm not made to dress that way or act that way or not to listen to these things. So, hey, if my parents don't make me do it, why should I do it? Well, just a little bit of you stepping out and saying, what? I believe that God wants me to do this. I believe the Bible's talking to me. And though other people may want to ignore it, I can step out and do what's right. David shows up and he sees his brothers who don't want him there. He sees that everybody's running and hiding. The king isn't doing anything about it. He's not leading the army. He's not sending someone. David could have said, well, I did my job. I gave them cheese and I'm getting out of here. But instead of, though they had influence on him, David said, you know what? I'll step up and I'm going to do something. I don't know what I can do. I may not be experienced. I may not have the weapons. I may not have been fighting as long as Goliath, but I can do something. Verse number 32. On September 11th, 2001, it was a terrorist attack in the United States. And almost 3,000 people died as terrorists crashed airplanes into the Twin Towers. And they were, people inside the towers, most of them didn't even know what was going on. Yeah. There's people around the world watching on TV, seeing these towers on fire, and people inside are thinking, I don't know, the building shook and there's smoke, and we don't know what's going on. And there was heroes that rushed in. Yeah. Heroes that went in to save people. And you know what? Some of them, that was their job. They were firefighters. They were police. They were first responders. They were in the military, and they go to try to help people. And many of them died when those buildings collapsed. But there was other people. There was people that, it was not their job. Yeah. They worked in an office. There was people who maybe they had dreams of being a firefighter. Maybe they were former servicemen and women. They were veterans, and they thought, you know what? I should help. They didn't have to. There's civilians running down the stairs to try to get out of there. And there's other civilians that are saying, you know what? I'm going to go see who I can help. Not because they had to, but they said, you know what? There's other lives. There's other people that are depending on somebody to help them. There may be some people that can't get down the stairs by themselves. There may be some people, they don't even know what's going on. And I can go and I can make a difference. I can warn them. See all these people over here with these red bandanas. I don't know if you guys ever heard about the man with the red bandana. Wells Crowther. He was a Boston College lacrosse player. And he always had a red bandana with him. Just like Elijah. And he had dreams of becoming a firefighter. And he was working, he graduated from Boston College. He was working in one of the towers. And he died in those towers when they came down. And as survivors were telling their story, they started just talking about this guy that helped them, that helped them down the stairs, and he was wearing a red bandana. And his family, the family of this man, they had realized that their son and their brother had passed away. And they find out that these people were rescued by someone with this red bandana. And they go, they meet with these people, and they show them a picture and say, yeah, that was him. This person is saying, you know what, I am going to give of myself to help other people. It's not my job. I'm not being sent in to do this, but I'm willing to step out and risk my life even to help other people. And yet sometimes we won't even turn around and hold the door open for somebody.
Wow.
Because we always are just thinking about ourselves. David said, you know what? This isn't my job. I have a job to do somewhere else. I'm not even old enough really to be here. But hey, nobody else is doing anything. I can step out and do something. So they bring David before the king. Verse 29, David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? As his brothers are saying, why are you here? Why are you asking us these questions? And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. In verse 31. Verse 32. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Now I can just imagine the people around Saul. They bring David in. We bring Benjamin in because Elijah, he's too scared to go up and fight Chad. Benjamin comes in and says, don't be scared. I will go and do it. And people just think, oh, why is this kid even here? Like, are we really taking this seriously? But David's serious. He's saying, hey, this may be a giant here, but, we can defeat giants. This isn't some impossible task. Thy servant will go. David, instead of trying to find a way out of the battle, he was trying to find a way into the battle. Most people in life are trying to find a way out of doing things, out of responsibility, out of anybody asking them for help. Where David says, you know what? Pick me. I will do it. I will go. I don't even know what's going to happen, but I'll go and face him. David's initiative. Not just because he was asked, not just because he was forced, but he sees something that needs done. Then we see David's faith. He tells Saul, thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Is it because he had strength in himself that he just thought, I can handle this. I know how to work a sling. Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep. There came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. Saul says, hey, you want to do it? You're volunteering. You say that you have God on your side. But what's going to happen? I mean, a little embarrassment. We're already embarrassed. We're already running away from the enemy.
Yeah. But
David says, you know what? I'm not just looking for some adventure to have that I'm going to risk my neck for. Some guys live for that. They just live for the adventure. They want to do something that man has never done before. And some people are like, yeah, I'll watch that on TV. I'll stay home. David saying, you know what? This is not the first time that I have seen God work. Let me tell you about the times that I have already trusted in him, and he has helped me. We see David's faith. The Bible says that Goliath was a man of war from his youth. But we also see that David was a man of faith from his youth. He didn't jump into this battle and say, you know what? I think I'm going to trust God. For the first time, I'm just going to go for it. No, David is building on his faith.
Yeah.
The faith that has already begun in his life, the faith that while he was out there watching the sheep when nobody was watching, and he could have just easily said, you know what? What's one sheep? Why should I care? I'll make sure the rest of them are safe. But David said, you know what? I'm going to do my job. I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to trust God to help me. We're growing our faith step by step so that God can continue building that in your life. David, he had the initiative, and he trusted God. Back here with the lion and the bear in a battle that others did not even know about. It's not just about doing what's right and volunteering because the right person is watching. You know, people that you want to think good about you are watching, so you'll volunteer, but you're like, man, I really don't want to do this. If they weren't here, I wouldn't. David says, you know, it doesn't matter if anybody's watching. I cannot let this lion take away this lamb that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
I know God can help me, so why should I sit here and just watch it happen? And I think David, if he showed up to this battle, and that story, that account had never happened, where David had fought the lion and the bear and taken that lamb and trusted in God for help, if that had never happened, would he have had the faith to go and face Goliath? He would have showed up thinking, hey, I remember the last time somebody came in. I remember the last time the lion came in, and I was too scared to fight against the lion then. This is an even bigger giant. You can't expect to fight the big giants in your life if you're not going to have faith for God to help you with the small ones.
Yes. Yes.
David said, the same God that I have relied on in the past, that's the same God I'm trusting in to get me through this. God wants to help you, but we just don't have faith that he can. We think, oh man, I got all these problems in my life. And some of you, maybe you have some problems in your life. Maybe there's some issues that you really can't change at the moment. But you can have faith in God that he's going to get you through it, that he has a plan for you, and you're going to do what's right. You're not going to run away from what God has for you because of your circumstances and what's going on in your life. David's test of his initiative and his faith, though nobody was watching, even if they were, David could have said, you know what? I'm a shepherd with a stick. That's a lion. I mean, who would have blamed him? Just one lamb. I mean, he's there, and he's got 100 sheep that the lion didn't take.
Yeah.
Good job for letting him only take one. But David saying, no, my job is to watch all the sheep. I have a job that I'm supposed to do. David took responsibility and followed through, trusting God for help. Don't run from responsibility.
Yes.
As you get older, responsibility will come to you.
Yeah.
Responsibility comes maybe because you're the oldest, Ava. You're the oldest child in your family. I know. My daughter hates being the oldest. She just hates, at 6 years old, the responsibility that she has to help take care. It's sad. I feel so bad for her. But, don't run from responsibility. You can't expect people to give it to you if you're never going to say, you know what, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this little bit of responsibility, and I'm going to prove that I can handle it. And you think, oh man, I get responsibility. I don't want to do that. I just want to do my own thing. I want to have fun with life. I don't want responsibility. Well, that's going to come in your life. What are you going to do when it comes? So we see David's initiative and his faith. Next, we see David's motivation. Now, he had asked, what's going to be done to the man that kills this Philistine? And they said, he's going to get riches, and his house will be free in Israel. He's going to have the king's daughter. And still, nobody wants to go fight this Philistine. Apparently, they weren't given enough money. And apparently, the price wasn't big enough because nobody wanted to fight this Philistine, even though there was rewards involved. It wasn't just about beating the enemy. The king was trying to pay somebody to go do this.
Yeah.
But that was not David's motivation. Look at verse number 45. David goes, he gets the stones, he comes up to face the giant. And David said, verse 43, the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. Wow. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, And I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth. Why? That all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. David said, I am not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for a wife. I'm not doing this so that my name will be great. I'm doing this that all the earth may know because of who he's using, the circumstances, the fact that everybody else is running scared. I'm doing this to show how good God is, how great God is, and I want everybody to know it. Don't live your life only living for what you can get out of it. Don't live your life and say, well, what's in it for me? Am I motivated because of what I'm going to get? Am I motivated because maybe who's going to talk to me? Maybe I'm trying to catch somebody's eye. You know what I mean? I'm trying to look good for somebody else. I want someone to want to hang out with me, so I guess I'll do this just so they'll notice. I'll do this if I get paid. Someone may ask me for help, and I'll say, well, how much are you paying? Well, that's not enough. I'd rather sit at home and not make any money and not get any exercise. I'd rather just do that because you're not paying me enough.
Yeah, come on.
We won't even ask Brother Dan how much he made when he first got a job. Did they even have minimum wage in the 1800s? But, David did not go into this battle expecting to fight a giant. He definitely didn't go into this battle thinking, if I win, they're going to make me a general.
Yeah.
He had a job back home. He had sheep to go watch. He's just showing up. He's not even part of the army, but he says, well, I'll go fight him. And I'm going to do this not through my own strength. I'm going to trust in God. And I'm not doing this for what I can get out of it. I'm just doing it so that the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And then I got a job to go back to. Whose name are you trying to build up? What are you trying to get out of what you're doing? Are you willing to just say, hey, this is right to do? I don't have to have a reason. I don't have to have someone watching me. I don't have to even worry about what I'm going to get. I just believe that this is right.
Yeah.
I know God has told me in his word. This is just an obvious thing, but I think I only have to do the obvious if people are watching. I only have to do the obvious if there's something in it for me. David's motivation. And lastly, we see David's example. There will be times where you do what's right and nobody will ever see that. We may find out things about someone in heaven one day we may never even know here on this earth. Does that mean we shouldn't do it? No. But you never know when people are watching. You never know the example that you are setting for other people. People are watching you. Younger siblings, cousins, people maybe that are older than you, maybe people that just started coming to church. Your parents are watching you. And you can be an influence on them. David runs to the enemy. He wins a battle. Verse number 48. Came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the enemy to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. Now, in case you're wondering, it's the only mention of Shay in the Bible. The stone sunk to his forehead. Anyway, verse 50. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of his sheath thereof and slew him and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. Wouldn't you? You got David up there. Now imagine, just for your imagination's sake, you kill a giant and you go up there. You're not too experienced with this sword, okay? And it's a big sword. It's probably a very heavy sword. And Goliath has got a very big head, a very thick neck. And he's got these things inside of his neck called bones.
Yeah.
And there's muscle. And there's stuff. Okay? Yeah. He takes this sword. Okay? Now we see in the movie, it's like, bam, the head comes off. Could you imagine the hacking and the cutting and the blood, and probably he hits the vein. There's a fountain flowing, filled with blood, and it ain't from Emmanuel's veins, okay? But this was not just an easy job that David had. He's up there cutting and hacking. He's thinking, wouldn't it be nice? I mean, I know I want to finish the job, but anybody want to give me a hand with this thing? Then he picks up this head. Could you imagine holding up a head, a big head, okay? A bloody head, and he holds it up. But David, he's being an example to the rest of the army that just a little bit before was running and hiding. Nobody wanted to do anything, and now he's won this battle. Well, does that mean that it's over? Well, there's still an army on this side, and there's still an army on this side. All we have is a little bit of a one-on-one fight going on. Except even Goliath, he had to have someone with him. He had to have someone carrying a shield. But through David's example and encouragement, the rest of the army was motivated. Verse 52, and the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until thou come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Sharam, even unto Gath, and to Ekron. The army of Israel said, man, I think it's about time we get in on this fight. Things are going well. It's always, bandwagoners. They're like, oh, what team do you like? I'm on David's team right now because he just took down the giant. We may as well just be on the team that has the trophy.
Yeah.
But hey, there's nothing wrong with being an example and encouragement to someone else to say, hey, look, I've been able to defeat this giant.
Yeah.
Why don't you come and help me?
Yeah.
Why don't you come be a part of this battle? And together we can defeat the enemy. We have one young person, not a professional, not someone who's been here before, not someone who's even been asked to do this job. One young person who made an impact on an entire nation. Not just for a moment, not just somebody that, we remember this time that David killed Goliath. This is not the last time that we hear about David in the Bible.
Yeah.
He made an impact on the history of Israel. Because as a young man, he said, hey, I may have already been anointed to be king. I'm not going up to Saul and pulling the king card and saying, I'm going to have your job one day. I guess we'll go kill the Philistines. He said, what? I may have been anointed king, but I'm a shepherd. God has not told me that I'm supposed to be king yet.
Yeah.
But I can make a difference in this battle because of David's initiative, because of David's faith that he had in God, because David had the right motivation in what he was doing. And because David set an example, other people were able to get involved in this fight. So what kind of difference will you make? Will you be the one that does something? Maybe for God, maybe just that makes a difference in helping other people. Just as the one that says, I'm just going to be kind to people. I'm just going to be helpful in any area that I can. I'm not looking to just please myself, not just looking for, if you're going to pay me, just be someone that says, I'm just willing to be a help to people. I'm just willing to share truth that God has given to me. I don't have to keep it to myself. Maybe you just need to leave your clique and say, there's new people at camp.
Yeah.
I want to make them feel welcome.
Right.
There's people here I don't know, and maybe they don't have anybody that wants to hang out with them. I'll be the one. I'll be the one that says, they might be at camp for the next 8 years, and they're going to remember me. I think back to my first year at camp. And it seems like, for the most part, unless it's just horrible and it's in a bad way, your first year of camp, that's always the best. Yeah. That's where you make memories. That's where you make traditions. You go into camp thinking, oh man, this is the first time anybody's ever done this. Oh man, they were doing this before I was born, okay? But when you show up somewhere and you do something for the first time, you just think that's new. It's new to everybody. You can have a part in making somebody that's here for the first time excited about wanting to come back. Excited about going to church and not saying, well, I hung out with them at camp for a week. Nobody talked to me there. Why would I want to go to church where nobody's going to talk to me? Be the one that says, I'm going to be friendly to people. I'm going to help people.
That's good.
What will you give up to join in a ministry, to be a help? Make time for God in your life. You may think, my schedule is just booked too tight. I know I need to take a break from using my thumbs, so I'm going to do something else. But it's not going to include having time for God. You know what? Why don't you make some time?
Yeah.
Have some initiative and say, I want to get something personally from God and not just have it yelled at me about. What's going on in your life where you need to trust in God? You may think, I don't know how I'm going to get through this situation that I have. I don't know what the next step is in my life. But you know what? Right now, if you're not going to build faith now, you're not going to have faith down the road when bigger issues come into your life. Yeah. Right now is the time to start building faith, building trust in God, and say, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm just going to trust Him. And that's going to be a pattern I'm going to follow for the rest of my life. What motivates you? Things that are temporary or things that are eternal? Things that help other people or whatever's best for yourself? And what kind of example are you showing to those around you? To your siblings, to your friends, to people at school, people that maybe you don't even really want to talk to them, but they know you're a Christian. They know you go to church. And you may not even know the impact that you have. Right. But you can set an example. The question is, will you be the one? Will you be the one that lets God speak to your heart this week? You're going to hear messages. You're going to hear some powerful preaching from God's word. And you can say, you know what? I'm just going to go in deciding that I'm comfortable with the life that I have now. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. I'm there to have fun. You know what? Just say, I don't know what God is going to speak to me about. I don't know what God wants from me. But I'll be the one that just says, I'm open and I'm available to whatever He has. Not one who lives for self, but lives for the Lord. So every head bowed, every eye closed. As we get ready for a week of camp and an exciting time, how are you